So, today we're talking about 5.2, focusing in on congruent polygons. Put laptops over, please.
Do you have a homework assignment?
Yes. So, for polygons to be congruent, all of their sides and angles have to have congruencies in them. Every single side, every single angle, and they have to be kind of set up in a way where, like in this picture, angle A is congruent to angle Z, B is congruent to Y, X is congruent to C, and D is congruent to W. You'll notice that while they go different directions around these shapes, which they don't always have to go in different directions, they do still at least around the shape go in the same order. So do the sides. AB is congruent to YZ, and those are between the single and double marked angles. YX is congruent to BC, and both of those are between the double and triple marked angles. And I could keep going around talking about the same thing. Now that picture gets really, really busy really quick because that's a quadrilateral, and on top of it is, I don't know, really big picture. Now we're mainly going to deal with triangles. But I start with a quadrilateral really just to kind of really emphasize that fact that all of the parts are kind of going to be in the same spots to make the polygons the same size, because that's what congruent means. Same size, same shape. So, one of the things that we're going to do with this is we're going to name the polygons. To name a polygon, you name it by all of its corners. If it's a triangle, we put a triangle symbol in front of it. If it's a bigger polygon, we just use all the letters. A, B, C, D is congruent to polygon Z, Y, X, W. And we have to go in a specific order. The order being that it matches from one shape to the other. Angle A matched up with angle Z. B matched with Y, C matched with X, and D matched with W. So that's going to be one of the things that we're looking at today, is just recognizing this thing right here, which is known as a congruence statement. And congruent statements are huge in this chapter. So if I look at this picture, these two triangles are the same size and the same shape. So they are congruent. How do I know that? It tells you they're congruent. The first triangle I'm going to call triangle ABC. And triangle ABC is congruent to triangle. Now looking at this picture, angle A doesn't have any markings in it. But do you notice it's between the side with the double marking and the one with no markings on it? Which side on the other triangle is between the double and unmarked sides? E. So triangle E. I move on to B. B is between the single and double marked side. Which angle's between the single and double marked side and the other one? Also B. And then the last corner of that triangle is D. That is the congruence statement. Now, from a congruence statement, you should also be able to tell me all of the congruent corresponding parts. Corresponding parts are sides and angles. How many angles does a triangle have? How many sides does it have? Which means when I ask you to label all congruent corresponding sides and angles and all parts, I'm asking for 3 angles, 3 sides. So it's a little bit of a lot sometimes. I won't ask it very often, but I will on problems like this one. Angle A was congruent to angle E. A matched up with E. Angle, be careful with your angles. My brain says I want to move on to angle B, but if I mention angle B, is it obvious which angle I'm talking about? Because it's in the middle of a bunch of things. There's 4 angles called angle B. I need to be specific. If I can't call an angle by a single letter, I have to call it by a triple letter. I want this angle specifically. What's the 3-letter name for the angle right here? ABC. B is in the middle, goes towards A, goes towards C. So angle ABC is congruent to this one. What's that one's 3-letter name? B is in the middle, goes towards what 2 letters? E and D, so EBD or DBE. Can I use a single letter name for C? Yeah. Angle C is congruent to angle D because it's obvious which one's C and which one's D. And then I'd have to do the segments as well. Segments, remember, are 2 letters with the bar above them. And AB is congruent to, AB has the double mark. Which one has the double mark in the other picture? BE or EB. BC is the single mark, is congruent to BD in the other. And the last side would be AC being congruent to DE. This is the most tedious of the problems you're going to see today. Most of the problems are going to be a lot shorter, like the ones below. Some of them are going to be just giving you the congruent statement and asking about specific parts. To pull out specific parts from the congruent statement, you just have to look at the order that things are in. I'm looking first off at angle QSR. Angles first off are congruent to angles, so you should start with angle. QSR, are those letters in the first name or the second name? First name. Go in the same order. Q is which letter in this name? Middle. So the other side I should start with the middle letter. J. I went to S next. I should go to K next because it's the first letter in the first letter. So J, K. R is the last letter. I'm going to go to L, which is the last letter of the other one. It's all about matching up parts. If it gives you a single letter name, you can respond with a single letter name. L. Which one's that in? The first one or the second one? Second one. Which letter is it? Third letter. So angle L is congruent to angle R. Okay. Next, it's moving on to a segment, QR. Q and R are in the first name. It's the second and third letter, which means in the other one I should use JL. The last one it says is KJ. Which ones I could be congruent to? SQ. Don't forget to put the bars above segments. Don't forget to put the angle symbol in front of angles. No, you should not have an M. Measures go with equal signs. Last thing you're going to see is problems like the bottom. The bottom gives you the congruent statement as well. What it wants you to do is to mark the picture with all of its congruencies. let's say I choose to start with angle S. Angle S should be congruent to which angle in the other triangle? No. Look at the names. S is the first letter. Should go with X. Since I chose to start with that, I'm going to do the single marked angle. I'm going to move on to my next angle. I'm going to use T next. I'm going to use that as the double marked angle. T should go with which one? Z. Guess what? Triangles only have 3 angles. If you've got 2 of them marked, the third one has to match. Triple, triple. Mark both angles and sides. Angles are done, and move on to sides. I'm going to do a single mark on the sides ST. According to the names, ST should go with XZ. XZ, mark. I'll move on to the double side. It doesn't matter which side you do next. You just got to make a choice. I'm going to do this one. TU should go with ZU. And guess what? Triangles only have 3 sides. Once you've got 2 marked, the third one, if you know they're congruent, has to match up. That's the type of stuff you're seeing today. How are we feeling about that? Good, iffy, bad? Okay. I got a worksheet for y'all. Not to mention, once you copy answers, then neither of you get any points.
Never mind, no, I hate myself.
So, on Friday, we started to look at 5.2, which all focuses in on corresponding parts. So, if you have congruent polygons, talked about the fact that on incongruent polygons, all of the corresponding parts are congruent. And the order in which the name goes tells us the order in which the things are congruent. If I tell you that polygon ABCD is congruent to polygon ZYXW, that means angle A and angle Z are congruent because they're both the first letter in the name. Angle B was congruent to angle Y because they're both the second letter of the name, and so on. And you could do the same thing with the sides. Side AB is congruent to side ZY because of the fact that that's the first and second letters of the names. And you could do that with any sides of the shape. So one of the things that we looked at, that we wanted to recognize when it came to our congruent polygons, is can we just recognize which parts are corresponding and congruent, as well as write the congruence statement. And the congruent statement is this thing. It's that thing that says all the things are congruent. And I just didn't name that up here on Friday, I named it down here. Now, sometimes when you're dealing with congruent polygons, they will have all of the things marked as congruent for you. Sometimes they won't. First one here is a situation where they've got all of the things marked. I'd still want the congruent statement. The congruent statement's that thing that says the shapes are congruent. When it comes to naming the congruent shapes, the name of the first shape does not matter what order you go in. When you name a polygon, you go from corner to corner to corner around the shape. Doesn't matter if you go clockwise, doesn't matter if you go counterclockwise, doesn't matter which corner you start on. Let's say I take a look at this triangle on the left. Which letter do you want to start with? The L, the G, or the K? K, sure. Now, since it is a triangle, when we write a congruent statement, we say triangle And I was told to start with K. Perfect, love it. Do you want to go clockwise around or counterclockwise around? Clockwise, sure. So from K, I would go to L and then J.
Yeah.
So triangle K, L, J is congruent. Make sure you put the triangle symbol again. If I started with K on the first triangle, which corner do I have to start with on the second triangle? Why are you thinking S, Jackson?
Because like
If
if you flip the triangle around, just put them in the same spots, it would be the same.
you flip the triangle around and if you overlap them, K would be in the same place as S. Love that. Is there an easier way to figure that out without having to kind of flip the shape in your mind?
They're right next to each other.
That doesn't necessarily work. Brenna, what do you think? The K has 3 angle marks, the S has 3 angle marks. It's the number of markings in that corner. From K I went to L. L had a single angle mark. Which angle in this triangle only has a single? R. So it would have to go SR and then T is left over. Now that's the congruent statement. This particular problem says write the congruent statement for the polygons and reference its corresponding parts. Its corresponding parts are angles and sides. How many angles does a triangle have?
Yeah, I don't know. It's too early in the morning.
3.
It's 3.
How many sides does a triangle have?
4.
3.
3. So corresponding parts is a total of 6 things I have to label as congruent. 3 angles, 3 sides. Angle. Which angle do you want to start with?
T.
Sure.
R.
Angle T is congruent to angle. T is double.
S. Wait. J.
J. Angle T is congruent to angle J. Move on to a different angle. Let's say I go angle R. Angle R is congruent to angle L. They both have the single angle mark. Angle S is congruent to angle K. Now, do be careful. On these ones, I was able to use the single letter name for all of the corners. Or at least I did use it. Should I have used the single letter name?
Yeah.
It's just fine. Here, can we put the laptop away, please? You have to be careful in situations where if you call an angle by a single letter, there's any ambiguity on what angle we're talking about. If I say angle S, is there any other possible angle that could be called angle S in this picture? No. Hence the reason I can call it angle S. But if I had a situation where there was that, could I call any of those angles angle S?
Yep.
No.
No.
No, because if you say angle S, I'm going to be thinking, okay, do you mean this one? Do you mean this one? Do you mean the biggest one? I don't know. S is not enough. That's when you have to use the 3-letter name. Since these triangles aren't touching one another, it's no problem. In problems like this one, we had to get a little pickier, specifically at this angle, because angle B was not enough information. Okay, back to this one. I got the 3 angles, now I need the 3 sides. Doesn't matter which sides you start with. Just make a choice. Let's say I choose to start with JK. JK would be congruent to which one? ST. Because they both have the single side tick mark. KL would be congruent to KL's got 2 tick marks. On the other
SR.
triangle?
Wait.
Yeah, SR. Last but not least would be JL with RT. Now, would it have mattered had I said RT or TR? For segments, does the order of the 2 letters matter?
No.
The order of the 2 letters does not matter in a segment. Rays, they matter. Okay. The next type of problem, similar, but not quite the same. This one wants you to take the information from the name and tell me what's congruent. So I tell you triangle NLM is congruent to triangle EMC. Angle E, where's E in the names? First letter of the second one. Angle E would match up with angle N. Now, when I give you a picture, you should double check that you don't need to use the three-letter name. E and N. Would you agree that I don't need a three-letter name for either of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Angle LMN. Well, here's triangle with LM and N in it. Is angle LMN the top one, the left one, or the right one? Which angle is angle? LMN. Top, left, or right? Remember, when you're naming by three letters, the middle letter is the pointy part. So it is this one. Hence, they use the three-letter name. You can always use the three-letter name, but they had to here because I couldn't just say angle M. Use the names to your advantage. LMN goes middle, right, first. What order do I have to go on the other one? If I went here, 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 where should I start if I'm going to use the three-letter name? M. Then I should go to C and back to E. Now that would be this angle. Could I have called it by a single letter name if it's this angle?
No. Yep.
I could have called it angle C because it's very clear what angle I'd be talking about. When in doubt, doesn't hurt to put the three-letter name. Side NL. That's this one. Use the names to help you. NL would go with which one? EM or ME. Segments are always two letters, so we don't have to worry about double checking for how many letters. Okay, last one's MC. Here's M, here's C, that's this one. MC would go with LM. This somewhat looking familiar from Friday.
No.
The last ones are probably actually the easiest. If it doesn't look familiar, this is why we're going back through it, because I did it so quickly that honestly I kind of figured some of it didn't quite sink in. The last problems say, given the following congruent statement, mark all the congruent sides and angles on the diagram. This just means add all the tick marks, add all the angle marks. I personally start with angles just because I find them easier. And I go in order. First letter with first letter. Now the first letter's U and the second letter, and on the first letter on the other one's U. Why would there be two U's? Because the triangles are touching one another. There's these four angles that if someone said angle U, I'd be like, which of those four angles is it? But remember, these are in triangles. Is this top one inside of a triangle? Is this left one inside of a triangle? Yes. Triangle, inside. Bottom one? No. Right one?
No. Yep.
Yes. One of these comes from one triangle, the other one comes from the other triangle. They both start at U, which means I can actually start there. Could I say angle U is congruent to angle U? No, I'd have to get more specific with the 3-letter name. But since I'm just marking on the picture, that works. Let's say I move on to angle V. V is going to go with which one?
G.
G. Second letter, which means W would have to go with
H.
H. It's a little bit cut off, but that is an H there. Okay, I move on to the sides. I could go back to the name. UV goes with UG. First two letters. Or, once you have the angles marked, I don't look at the name anymore. I look at the angle markings. Let's say I want to take a look at this side. Do you notice that this side is stuck between the double and the triple angle? Stuck between them? I go to the other shape and say, what side's stuck between the double and the triple angle? GH. And then last side goes with the last side. You can continue to use the name. The name will always work. But if you've got some markings, you could generally fill in the rest too. Okay, we also have the examples that we did on Friday of this. So those should be filled in. If you didn't fill them in, it's not the end of the world. I will put this back up for those who didn't fill it in just a second. Nope. We are done with notes today. So, we technically started 5.2 day 1 on Friday. We're just going to pretend we didn't. Today is the 10th. Homework's due on Wednesday. Wednesday is the 12th. Technically, we should have everything turned in so far this chapter. I know a number of you do not, and that's okay. You've got the extra time, but keep in mind, this chapter is going to go by pretty quick.